The New York Times is an American daily newspaper based in New York City with a worldwide readership. Founded in 1851, the Times has since won 130 Pulitzer Prizes, and has long been regarded within the industry as a national newspaper of record. It is ranked 18th in the world by circulation and 3rd in the US. The paper is owned by the New York Times Company, which is publicly traded. It has been governed by the Sulzberger family since 1896. Through a dual-class share structure after its shares became publicly traded. E.G. Sulzberger and his father, Arthur Och Sulzberger Jr., the paper's publisher and the company's chairman, respectively, are the fifth and fourth generation of the family to head the paper. Since the mid-1970s, the New York Times has expanded its layout and organization, adding special weekly sections on various topics supplementing the regular news, editorials, sports, and features. Since 2008, the Times has been organized into the following sections: news, editorials, opinions, columns, op-ed, New York, business, sports, arts, science, styles, home, travel, and other features. On Sundays, the Times is supplemented by the Sunday Review, the New York Times Book Review, the New York Times Magazine, and the New York Times Style Magazine. The Times stayed with the broadsheet full-page setup and an 8-column format for several years, after most papers switched to 6, and was one of the last newspapers to adopt color photography, especially on the front page. The paper's motto, "All the news that's fit to print," appears in the upper left-hand corner of the front page. The New York Times was founded as the New York Daily Times on September 18, 1851. Founded by journalist and politician Henry Jarvis Raymond and former banker George Jones. The Times was initially published by Raymond, Jones and Company. Early investors in the company included Edwin B. Morgan, Christopher Morgan, and Edward B. Wesley. Sold for a penny, the inaugural edition attempted to address various speculations on its purpose and positions that preceded its release. "We shall be conservative in all cases where we think conservatism essential to the public good. And we shall be radical in everything which may seem to us to require radical treatment and radical reform. We do not believe that everything in society is either exactly right or exactly wrong. What is good we desire to preserve and improve. What is evil, to exterminate or reform." In 1852, the newspaper started a Western division, the Times of California, which arrived whenever a mailboat from New York docked in California. However, the effort failed once local California newspapers came into prominence. On September 14, 1857, the newspaper officially shortened its name to the New York Times. The hyphen in the city name was dropped on December 1, 1896. On April 21, 1861, the New York Times began publishing a Sunday edition to offer daily coverage of the Civil War. One of the earliest public controversies it was involved with was the Mortarra affair, the subject of 20 editorials in the Times alone. The main office of the New York Times was attacked during the New York City draft riots. The riots, sparked by the institution of a draft for the Union Army, began on July 13, 1863, on Newspaper Row, across from City Hall. Co-founder Henry Raymond stopped the rioters with Gatling guns, early machine guns, one of which he manned himself. The mob diverted, instead attacking the headquarters of abolitionist publisher Horace Greeley's New York Tribune, until being forced to flee by the Brooklyn City Police, who had crossed the East River to help the Manhattan authorities. In 1869, Henry Raymond died, and George Jones took over as publisher. The newspaper's influence grew in 1870 and 1871, when it published a series of exposés on William Tweed, leader of the city's Democratic Party, popularly known as Tammany Hall, that led to the end of the Tweed Ring's domination of New York City Hall. Tweed had offered the New York Times $5 million to not publish the story. In the 1880s, the New York Times gradually transitioned from supporting Republican Party candidates in its editorials to becoming more politically independent and analytical. In 1884, the paper supported Democrat Grover Cleveland in his first presidential campaign. While this move cost the New York Times a portion of its readership among its more progressive and Republican readers, The paper eventually regained most of its lost ground within a few years. After George Jones died in 1891, Charles Ransom Miller and other New York Times editors raised $1 million to buy the Times, printing it under the New York Times Publishing Company. However, the newspaper found itself in a financial crisis by the Panic of 1893. And by 1896, the newspaper had a circulation of less than 9,000, and was losing $1,000 a day. That year, Adolph Ox, the publisher of the Chattanooga Times, gained a controlling interest.